Springfield Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting is called to order. Please stand and we'll have the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. I have been at the Tennessee Municipal League, and I have to tell you, I have to brag on the city of Springfield, because in the audits, they talked about how many cities were not complying, and our city has always complied. So, Ms. Crockett, kudos. There's a whole lot of cities in trouble for not doing what they're supposed to do on the state level, and I thank you for what you do for us. And I also am very sorry to you, I will do this publicly, all the reporting that you have to do in the next couple of years for all the money that's coming from the federal government. Mr. Martin, she's got her hands full.
She sure does, yeah.
And I was at the state meeting and they were talking about how many reports she's got to fill out for all this reporting to the federal and state government. So she's going to be a little under the weather with reporting.
All that handouts from the state and from Washington are great, but they come with strings attached. So
Large strings, I might add. So kudos to your department. Don't normally like to call out departments, but being at that meeting all day yesterday really told me what y'all are all doing in that department that you are running. So thank you. I cannot believe there's a whole lot of cities in the state of Tennessee that are not complying. Somebody's going to be knocking on their door and taking them over. So thank you. We'll have the approval of the minutes. 1.2, approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on February 15th, 2022. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Green. Are there any corrections? Any corrections to the minutes? We are human when we type these. No corrections, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
1.3, our public hearing. Our first public hearing, number 1, Ordinance 22-01, ordinance rescinding Ordinance 21-05 in its entirety and establishing a new schedule of fees and charges for play at the Legacy Golf Course. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak for this public hearing? No one would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, Ordinance 22-02, or ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022's annual budget by amending certain general funds and utility funds operating budget. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic and state your name. No one would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 3, Ordinance 22-03, or ordinance rezoning portions of 2 parcels located in the 5th Avenue East, on 5th Avenue East, from Commercial General District to High Density Residential District. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes. No one would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 4, Resolution 22-08, a resolution annexing property owned by John T. Johnston and Bonnie Johnston, located on 5th Avenue East and Stevens Lane. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. Yes, please.
Anita Blakemore. The reason I want to find out, I am an ancestor of Emmanuel Douglas. The Douglas burial ground is in that property that's mentioned there, and we want to find out exactly, about how the the burial ground is gonna be protected, how it's gonna be fenced off, and such as that. And also, we need to know, how do you know how far the graveyard is? Because it's been there since the 1900s.
Okay.
And so, we haven't been up there in quite a while, because when they started farming that area, it used to be an access road to it. They started farming that area around that burial ground and removed the access road. So nobody has been up there in years. But, you know, all the family knows about it, and we have been watching it, and, you know, so we can see it from the road and make sure nothing happens to it. So we're just, as a family, wants to know, you know, what exactly gonna be done, what's gonna be set up, how do you know how far the graveyard is?
Okay. Will you please tell us your address?
1011 Merrily Court, Orlando, Tennessee.
And we will talk about that during the discussion
Okay, thank you.
when it's on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else like to speak for the public hearing? Please come to the mic. No one else would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-01 on a second reading, or ordinance rescinding ordinance 21-05 in its entirety, and establishing a new schedule of fees and charges for play at Legacy Golf Course. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Questions on this second reading or discussion? No discussion? I'm ready to play golf. You ready to play golf? You've probably been playing. No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-02 on a second reading, or ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 annual budget by amending certain general fund and utility fund operating budgets. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second, a motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg. And this needs to be amended. Would you like to talk about that before?
Yes, ma'am. If you have an amended version in your packet, this amended version includes the tourism fund amendment that I sort of briefed you on last month. Told you this was coming. We've collected about $50,000 in our new hotel motel occupancy tax over the last 4 months. We have enough information now to move forward and have done enough research. Ms. Tillman and her team have done some research on how we need to move forward with this, and so we're going to move forward with that in-house, and so you have an amendment to move forward with putting someone in position, and that position, I'll be very clear about this, is only funded by hotel motel tax. That position will not be funded. That's a tourism position only. That money can only be used for tourism, and so that position is only funded by the tourism fund. There's no general tax money, sales tax, or property tax that would go towards funding that position. So there's a risk of job security there, sure, if the hospitality industry falters. You know, if we have a pandemic type situation again, then that person might be out of a job because there wouldn't be enough funding there for their position, but that position is only funded by that money.
Okay. Anyone like to make that amendment? Hold on. She's talking. I wished I could tell you what I heard yesterday about the state of Tennessee and how many tourism dollars we're receiving and how many visitors are coming here. We're like, I want to say we were like the third most traveled to state. I may not have that right. I should have wrote it down so I could share that with you. I don't think this job's going to go away.
No.
I'm very positive.
No, we have assets. We just talked about one of those assets. The golf course is a huge asset that we have.
Yes, and there's a lot of cars in the parking lot. I'd like to drive around and see what the license plates, I know I'm a nerd, but see what the license plates are in the parking lot. Okay? Ready for discussion? Somebody make the amendment?
They already did.
Okay. Oh, well, if I read the screen, okay. The amendment was made by Vice Mayor Harris, and the second was made by Alderman Green. Sorry, I fell off board. got talking about that tourism. I like that money coming in. We don't have to provide schools for them and, all the other amenities. Any discussion? Not that we provide schools, but the county does. Let me make that clear to the, public. Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote.
This is on the amendment.
Yes. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, we're back to the main motion as amended. Any discussion? Ready for a vote? It's talking to you.
The operator.
Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-03 on a second reading. An ordinance rezoning the two parcels located in the Fifth Avenue East from commercial general district to high-density residential district. Motion made by Alderman Green and second made by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Questions on this second reading? Yes, sir.
Mayor, I think we need to, well, no, I'll wait.
Okay. Any discussion? We're ready for a vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-04 on a first reading. An ordinance amending chapter 5 of the Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to R10, RS10, and R7 side yard setback requirements. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Trotter to discuss. This is a first reading, so Ms. Brickles.
Ordinance 22-04, an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to R10, RS10, and R7 side yard setback requirements. Whereas variance applications are submitted on a regular basis for side yard requirements in the R10 medium-density residential districts, RS10 medium-density residential districts, and R7 high-density residential districts. Whereas Springfield zoning ordinance is to ensure that all future residential structures add value to the city, and whereas the Springfield Regional Planning Commission voted favorably to recommend that the City of Springfield zoning ordinance be amended pertaining to side yard setbacks in the R10, RS10, and R7 residential districts. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 11-509 of the Springfield zoning ordinance entitled R10 medium-density residential districts is hereby amended by amending subsection F entitled yard requirements to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 11-510 of the Springfield zoning ordinance entitled RS10 medium-density residential districts is hereby amended by amending subsection F entitled yard requirements to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 11-511 of the Springfield zoning ordinance entitled R7 high-density residential districts is hereby amended by amending subsection F entitled yard requirements to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you, Ms. Brickles. Discussion, questions on this setback?
Just
Yes,
get a
sir.
summary, exactly what it means. So
Sure.
the public
I
will
think
know.
Mr. Brewer probably can.
Mr. Brewer,
provide a
would you like to come to the
detailed
mic?
explanation.
This is your department. We won't ask Mr. Martin to tell us about it.
Presently in the R10, RS10, R7, there is a side yard setback requirement for a single-story house, and if you have a two-story house, you have an additional 5 feet. So in the R7, that's 13, in the R10, that's 15 for a two-story house. Over the last few years, we've had, you know, a few, 17 or so, but the big thing with that, coming and getting in that variance, it slows the development of the lot down. by sometimes as much as 2 months if they don't hit the dates right for the BZA. Staff has often talked about that, you know, there is plenty of space with the 8 foot at the R7, well within the code requirements for the building codes. And this would just enhance the availability of us to provide a higher level of customer service to our home builders and get them started sooner and get their product on the market quicker and ultimately collect taxes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions while he's at the mic? Thank you, Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Other discussion before we vote? No other discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-08 on a second reading. A resolution annexing property owned by John T. Johnston and Bonnie Johnston located in Fifth Avenue East and Stevens Lane. Now, the motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Trotter. The question has been brought up tonight about the cemetery, which is a great question. We do not want to hurt the cemetery whatsoever or any other cemetery, so I'm going to. Josh Lyons is in the audience. He's with Clover. He is the engineer for the project, and I'm going to ask him to come to the mic and talk about that.
Yeah, good evening. Yes, good question, and that was also brought up at the planning commission stage. And actually, in reality, the property will be surveyed, so we'll know exactly the metes and bounds of that cemetery. But also, in our concept development, we're actually providing a roadway that will go near it, and we'll have an opening that will provide access to the cemetery. And discussed at planning commission was putting a fence and a sign on the cemetery as well to protect it. So hopefully enhancing it, but actually providing actual access to the cemetery once this site is developed. So we've got that included as part of our concept, and we'll continue on with the construction document development.
Okay? Anyone have questions for him?
The
From this board?
cemetery is currently on the deed as a cemetery?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just like, Ms. Douglas, would you be satisfied with that, Ms. Douglas?
Douglas Cemetery.
Douglas Cemetery.
Right.
Ms. Blakemore, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other questions while he's still at the mic? Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Okay? Yes, sir.
I'd like to point out to you, if you received the email and you look in your packet, we did receive the traffic study from Clover Engineering this past week, so we did work with them to amend the plan of services to include the recommendations. Previously, the plan of services said that we were waiting on the traffic study, and so now that we received that recommendation, which does include an eastbound turning lane on Fifth Avenue, Mr. Brewer and Mr. Lyons worked that out to update the plan of service.
So is that gonna take some widening of the road?
It will. It will, I believe so. I mean, of course, and that's a state highway, so that will all go through TDOT, but the developer has agreed to do that.
Which
And
means some property will have to be acquired, probably?
I'm not sure, Mr. Brewer can probably answer that better than I can.
Thank you. There should be adequate right-of-way there for, you know, they're gonna only widen it per ASHTO design back to the west to allow a turning lane in the middle. And so I can assure you TDOT will make sure that everything is designed to a very high standard and constructed to that standard as well. So, you know, it's going to be probably more difficult to get permission from TDOT than it will be to do the work.
Okay. Other questions while he's at the mic? No questions for Mr. Brewer? Thank you, Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Other discussion? No other discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.6, Discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-11, a resolution declaring certain property surplus and authorizing the disposal of such properties. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Green to discuss this. We do this every month, so,
I have one comment, Mayor.
yes, sir.
Just want to point out to you, because the resolution generally says the same thing, that the resolution authorizes the city manager to dispose pursuant to state law. We normally dispose of those things via gov deals. There is one exception on this month. It is the first item on the exhibit, and that is the 2005 Chevrolet Silverado truck. We will be conveying that to the airport. The airport is in need of a vehicle. They do not currently have one, believe it or not, to use to, there's the airport, interim airport manager is using his personal vehicle, and so we're going to convey this to them since we pulled it off of our, pulling out of our fleet, and they're gonna be able to use it.
Reason why that particular one, or it's got the most miles on it?
Of the three, we asked our fleet manager, and of the three, that's the only one he said that could get around. And it does, it has 200, we're not giving him a gem, okay? It has 207,000 miles on it, so, we're just getting them by for a little bit, so they have something to get around the airfield.
We're helping them out.
So it's a good thing they don't have to go far.
That's right.
What is it, a farm
That's
truck?
not gonna be that courtesy vehicle, is it?
No, not at all.
Other questions or discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.7, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-12, a resolution authorizing the City of Springfield to submit an application for the Tennessee Downtown Program. Motion made to discuss by Alderman Green, a second by Vice Mayor Harris. They can't submit this application without our approval, so it's just some bookkeeping. All right, no discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.8, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-13, a resolution authorizing the transition of the City of Springfield 457B Deferred Compensation Program to the State of Tennessee Administrative Program. Motion made by Alderman Green to discuss, and a second by Vice Mayor Harris. Okay? Yes, sir. Mr. Martin, did you want to?
I'll be glad to kind of give an update. I think we mentioned this some months back about us exploring this transition. This is a move. We currently we have two forms of retirement benefits for our employees. One is we're a participant of the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System, or as we refer to it, the State Retirement System, which is a defined benefit or pension plan. The other offering that we have for employees is a 457B deferred compensation plan, which is akin to a 401K, but for government employees. We currently do that through Voya. We do not contribute to it. We offer employees to make payroll deductions directly into that account, and so it's just a convenience thing since we pay 100% of the pension plan. The state of Tennessee, just a few years ago, began offering this service, a 457B and a 401K plan. Their fees are lower. They're obviously a nonprofit organization, unlike Voya, whose fees are going to be a little higher. So we've been exploring the opportunity to move to their plan, which also provides, not only it's cheaper, but it also relieves us of the fiduciary duty. We currently have fiduciary duty on our 457B plan. So if something were to happen to that money, we're responsible for it. And so what we would do is the Voya plan would stay in place. We have retirees, and I want to make this very, very clear. We have retirees who have accounts that have that money. Nothing changes with those. And so what we would do is we would just freeze those contributions. Employees would not be able to contribute to those accounts. They could map their funds over to a new account with the state of Tennessee, and we've met with our employees that are active in the plan on this. Or they can freeze that one and just start a new one or do whatever they choose. But what also comes with that is the ability to meet with the state when we do retirement consultations, and they can look at their entire retirement picture. So it's a huge plus for employees, an intangible plus, if you will, for employees. Then the next item on the agenda, just to go on and get this out of the way, is the 401K. the state, this comes with it. This is not something that obviously we contribute to, but it would be an offering. Where that comes into play for us is we try to recruit and hire folks from the private sector who have 401Ks that they can't do anything with once we hire them, because it just sits there. This would allow them to be able to roll that over and continue to have a payroll deducted contribution to that account and keep that moving. So that's a benefit, a little recruitment perk for us as well.
Okay. Questions about this discussion? It's a benefit to the employees.
They can participate in both plans?
They can.
Okay. Other questions? No other questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.9, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-14, a resolution authorizing the participation in the state of Tennessee's 401K program. Motion made by Alderman Green to discuss, and we need a second. Second made by Alderman Gregg. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.10, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-15 on a first reading, a resolution annexing property owned by Bond or Man located on Blackwood Road. We have a motion made by Alderman Green to discuss and a second by Alderman Gregg. Any questions on this annexation? No questions or discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 2.11, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-16, a resolution authorizing the City of Springfield Electric Department to apply for the 2022 Public Entity Partner Grant Funding Program for substation maintenance. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Questions on this and discussion on this resolution? Okay. No discussion. We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 3.1, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the retail electric rates for the Springfield Electric Department due to the wholesale fuel cost adjustments by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Trotter. Mr. Sachs.
Thank you. I'm pleased to say that we got a 1% increase in fuel cost adjustment this month, amounting to about $1 per customer call.
Okay. Any questions for him? No questions? As you know, we have to do this each month. We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the monthly gas rates for the Springfield Gas Department. Motion by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg. Mr. Riddle.
The purchase gas adjustments of 26.5%.
You went the wrong way. Boo.
Yep, the, market, for example, in February prices closed at $6.25. March, it's going back though. March is closing at $4.48. There was a big trader that got caught short, and that's the reason all the gas went up.
It is.
Stock
You're,
market.
you're just the messenger, I know. We're not gonna beat you up. Any questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action to ratify an emergency purchase from the electric department. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Trotter. Any questions on this emergency purchase? we want to make sure the electric department and the, the water and the gas is all working properly, and we're not having to call over there and say, my electricity's out. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action to approve a change order to the contract with Tyler Technology in the amount of $41,520 for an additional conversion service. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Questions on this change order? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
3.5, discuss and possible take action to approve the offer to purchase land in the North Industrial Park. We need a motion to discuss. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Green. Questions and discussion on this property? Pretty quiet tonight.
We have sold property in this area before. Have there been offers made for less than what was stated that we would take per acre?
So this one was a little bit different. It was done a little bit differently as far as the offer process. The net result is the same. The last one that one of the last ones that we sold was, and normally what we do, Mr. Harris, is we want people to take more than what they want to make sure we don't have any donut holes or gaps in the middle of the North Industrial Park that the city ends up maintaining. So we will have folks take more land than what they want. The land that we sold to Maker Table, for instance, he wanted 5 acres, and we wanted him to take about 3/4 of an acre more than that. We only charged him the $17,000, the stated price, for the 5 acres that he wanted, and the other was basically free. So if you average that out per acre, that was a little less than $15,000 an acre. Mr. Moore's offer here is at $15,000 an acre. The usable space, I believe, is because there's a wet weather conveyance in the middle of that, and the usable space, I believe, is around $19,000 an acre is what he's effectively going to be paying.
This is about it out there, isn't it? We're getting close.
Except for the Highway 41 frontage, which some of that is zoned commercial, but this is going to wrap up almost all, very close. We'll have a few acres left of industrial property, but the rest on the Highway 41 north frontage is commercial.
Okay.
But still on paper, these people that we gave extra to, they were still paying what the city had stated that we had to have per acre.
So their offers were $17,000, and you all approved them to have
The extra land.
the extra land. So that they ultimately paid less per acre than $17,000 of what they received, but what they wanted was, they paid $17,000 an acre for.
And we were doing that to get the property squared up correctly.
Correct.
So we didn't have something left out there that was gonna be odd, if I remember correctly. I'm not gonna even tell how many years I've been sitting up here. Any other discussion, questions? No other questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you. Okay, 3.6, discuss and possible take action on the recommendation from the Traffic Committee to post no parking signs on the south side of Third Avenue from North Oak Street to Connell Street. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. The Traffic Committee has proposed this, and I know that that has been an issue that a lot of people have called in about. And I have some pictures for another street we'll discuss later after the meeting's adjourned, that I've got some calls on.
Mayor, if I may, we'll have more recommendations. This is the first. If you remember at strategic planning, we identified quite a few areas that needed to be looked at by the Traffic Committee. They've rendered their recommendation on Third Avenue, and Mr. Moore can speak to that if you'd like him to. But there will be more recommendations, I believe, coming in next month and possibly in more months on the other areas that we discussed.
This is dangerous. We can't get fire trucks and police officers down at the same time coming from different directions. It's bad. Any discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
When someone violates this, what do we do?
Good question.
So, I mean, they'd be cited. I mean, there'd be a violation of the municipal code, for a parking violation, and so the police department, if someone's illegally parked, the same way we would if they were illegally parked anywhere else, this would be added to that, and we would cite them for that violation.
I read that correctly, that you chose that side because the electric poles are on that side? But there have been people parking on both sides.
Oh, yes.
Is there,
Pass him the mic, please, so the audience can hear.
Yes, sir. Is that working? I can't tell.
No.
That is? Okay. Yes, sir, the parking on both sides has become a problem, particularly with the fire department has occurred. And when they're on both sides, that causes a blockage they can't get through. However, if they're on one side and keep the utility poles on the side to allow parking on, it'll give more free access for the fire department and other emergency vehicles to get through without being squeezed in, can pass through.
so these people on this side that we're suggesting to make no parking, there's houses on that side too.
Yes, sir, there is.
So where are these people going if they're not gonna be able to park there that are currently parking?
They will
I mean, are they just
either-
making choice to park there?
And they can use their driveways, because most of the vehicles, most of the homes that have driveways, there is room for parking.
And that's the problem we're facing in other areas. of the
That
city.
is correct, yes, sir.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
If I can, just,
Our city manager.
the recommendation before you tonight from the traffic committee and from the staff is that if you wish to proceed with this, that a vote would be to move forward with a public hearing next month, which would allow those folks and any interested parties to come before you and speak and provide their input before this would be made effective.
Thank you for pointing that out. I forgot about that portion. Any more discussion?
So we're just gonna go through the procedures that we normally do on a first reading, or just allowing a public hearing?
Moving it forward, basically, because this isn't an ordinance, this vote would be to move forward with a public hearing next month.
Okay.
And then you would have another vote to make the recommendation effective or vote it down or modify it.
Okay. Other questions? No other questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We're ready for our consent doc.
Mayor, without objection, I move to take it as one.
Yes, sir. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Green. Any discussion or questions as a group? No questions on the consent doc. We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. I'll call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank you and this board and Alderman Hubbard in his absence for being active and engaged. You all do a lot of training on the state level or involved. Mayor, you're involved with TML as a district director. Alderman Hubbard is currently in Washington, D.C. representing us at the National League of Cities. And so we appreciate the representation of Springfield on those levels. About the fire station property update. I believe I told you that we've kind of determined on the sewer aspect about how much that's going to cost. We've had some deeper discussion on the geotechnical, and as a staff, we feel pretty comfortable because there has been geotechnical work that would have been done on the parkway that was built through there, the college and the elementary school. We feel pretty comfortable on this 1.5 to 2 acre piece for the 5,000, 6,000 square foot building that we're going to build, that the $25,000 to $30,000 it's gonna cost to do the geotech is about the same amount it might cost if we run into an issue and have to do some extra fill. So, if it's okay with this board, unless we all just want to pursue geotechnical work, we'll put that out, for bid and we'll get that rolling, but if you all are okay with it, we'll go on and proceed, without doing that. But I would kinda like to hear from you all on that.
And that's saving us money.
It would save us money. Mr. Brewer and I had a long talk about that today, and we feel pretty good about there not being a major sinkhole there. Obviously, if there is, it's like Mr. Brewer said, I mean, you can put a 50-foot grid out there for the geotech work and miss the sinkhole when they're boring, you know, and so you could do geotech work and still miss the sink, you know, and it not show up with the sinkhole if there was one that existed.
Or
So,
they can come later like they did at Legacy Golf Course.
sure, that could happen too.
Let's go around the room and how do you feel about that? Ms. Green,
I think that sounds great to go ahead and move forward, hopefully save some money in the process.
Mr. Gregg,
Save the money.
pinch the pennies. Mr. Trotter,
Move forward. Okay.
Mr. Harrison,
Okay, thank you all. Mayor, how do you feel about it?
pinch the pennies.
Okay, okay. All right, so now for a little bit of bad news. We do have an updated estimate on our wastewater treatment plant, and it has gone up. We are at a total now $47 million is the cost estimate for the plant. That number's going in the wrong direction. We're hoping that is, by the time, the timeline kind of looks like a year from now before we're really ready to bid and start construction, about May of '23. So we are very, very hopeful that in the next 12 to 14 months that the supply chain issues, the inflation, and things of that nature come down, because it's just not, you know, if you remember about a year ago when we first started having this discussion, that cost estimate was $36 million. And we've gone from 36 to 47 in a year's time, and that's a lot. So, back to some good news. Sales tax continues to be positive. Our local option sales tax is running about 12% ahead of budget, over $550,000 ahead of where
Keep shopping.
we anticipate it being. State sales tax is also running significantly ahead of budget. You can see all that in your financial reports that you received today. Unemployment rate for January, we received our January economic report from the state today. Our unemployment rate was 2.8%. So that's the 7th lowest unemployment rate out of the 95 counties in the state of Tennessee. They do it by county. That is a great thing and also a troubling thing at the same time. It's great to have an unemployment rate that low, but we have a lot of employers, including the city of Springfield, that are searching for employees. So we need more rooftops and folks to fill those jobs, and fortunately you all approved some things tonight that'll help get us there. In that economic report, the inflation for January was devastatingly high at 7.5%. That's inflation that we haven't seen in decades. So that is a major concern for us when it comes to trying to keep costs down, stay within budgetary appropriations and things of that nature. So we're really focusing on those type of things. We're still concerned. You received my email about the situation in Eastern Europe. We are staying on top of the gas situation, trying to make sure that we can keep our fleet fueled up. But cybersecurity is our #1 concern. We talked about that with Mr. Sachs, I believe this morning or yesterday morning, about our electric grid, about our water treatment plant. We're concerned about cybersecurity threats, legitimately concerned. Next month, you will have the draft report of the system development fee. That is ready. We have seen some of those preliminary numbers, and so we'll have that ready for you next month. We think we'll be able to do that as an agenda item. We think we can keep that to under 15 or 20 minutes. So, Ms. Green, I'm sorry, we'll be here a little bit, we'll have a 20-minute agenda item next month on that, but it's very good, and we need to get moving on that with a recommendation. Our annual report should be ready soon. We're packaging that up a little bit differently this year, but that'll hit your inboxes, hopefully fairly soon. Just a phenomenal, if you saw the News Channel 5 story that they came up and did, and we've had a tremendous community response to our Special Needs Baseball League, and we've had 37 players sign up for that league, which is absolutely phenomenal. That's a huge service that, we started last year with a few years ago. It just took it a while to get built, but building the inclusive playground, that was an unserved and underserved portion of our population that the city of Springfield wasn't serving, and we were underserving that segment of our population, and so now we're trying to do a better job of doing that in the Special Needs Baseball League. is going along well. We've had a lot of community support. Springfield Baptist Church is picking up almost all the costs for the league. We've had some donations from both the Walmart in Springfield and the Walmart in White House. So we're thankful for those folks that recognized that and jumped in. And finally, put on your calendars a spring community cleanup. You all have received the complaints. We've received the complaints. I'm not really on Facebook that much, but I understand that folks on Facebook are strongly opinionated about the trash on our streets. So I hope that each one of those folks sign up for our cleanup on April 23rd and come out and help out.
Oh, we need it.
We're expecting them to volunteer as well. So April 23rd, that's the day after Earth Day. Larry's Restaurant has agreed to sponsor, they're sponsoring the event and providing breakfast for the volunteers that show up. That's a big deal. We're thankful to Alan and his staff for stepping up to that. And so we'll have details about that. And TVA is also a sponsor. They're providing the supplies again this year, and so we're thankful for TVA for jumping in and recognizing the importance of that and investing. We complain about, you know, how much money we give to TVA sometimes and what they do to us, but here's what they're doing for us, and they do a lot that we need to celebrate for our community. So spring community cleanup, April 23rd. That's all I have here.
That's awesome. I do want to address the 46 million or 42 million. Which one was it?
47.
47, okay. I will say this. In my day job in the financial industry, I do believe the cost will come down. I about had a heart attack, but everything goes up and goes down. And I believe by the time we get ready to build this, hopefully it will not be $47 million. Now, I shall go home and pray about that from now until then. And hopefully that will be a much better situation. I know it scares me, and I know it scares everyone else about what our rates are going to be. We will keep on that and make sure that we get that done, because we can't continue to grow if we don't have that project.
That's right.
I saw, on a positive note, I saw that Friday night markets are coming back, the first Friday night in May, and our concerts at the courthouse. Anybody else want to say anything for the good of the cause? Mr. Trotter, you down on Legislative Hill, serving the state legislature.
I was wondering if Terry Barton did anything great this month, but we see he has.
He was on TV getting us attention on the state level.
Buddies is the name of that.
That's
I
a great
love it.
thing.
That's wonderful.
And you don't have to live in the city of Springfield to sign up.
We have one individual coming from Madison, Tennessee.
Wow.
That's awesome. That is a great service we're providing, and I'm so glad you're doing that.
Andy's done a good job in working on that.
He has.
We have.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, I shared that on Facebook and got a lot of good response from it.
Yeah.
that's great.
Big deal. Yeah, and shout out to Andy Smith, our IT analyst, who's going to be heavily involved in that league as well.
Thank you, Andy.
Head coach.
Head coach.
Ooh.
Woohoo! Step it up. Thank you much. Anything else? This meeting is adjourned.